Here is the fully adapted and localized narrative, translated into American English. My brother showed up out of the blue after years without visiting me, and stood there, confused as to why I was no longer living in my own house. My son-in-law opened the door with pride and said her house belongs to my wife, and if she tries to come near, she is going to get another beating. But he had no idea who he was talking to. And what my brother did next changed everything. There are hits in life that knock the wind out of you. Hits that do not come from the street, but from inside, from the people you loved the most. And when that hit comes, you do not know whether to stay standing or let yourself fall forever. I am Margaret Sullivan. I am 67 years old, and today I live in a tiny storage room, barely 30 square feet, at the back of my own property, the house I built with my husband, the house where I raised my daughter, the house that now treats me as if I were an intruder. It was Tuesday afternoon when I heard the doorbell, a sound I almost did not recognize anymore, because for months no one has visited me, no one asks for me, no one knocks on that door looking for me. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, which is barely an old mattress on the concrete floor, looking out the only small window that faces the backyard. That room used to be the storage shed. Now it is my entire world. The doorbell rang 2 more times. Insistent. I heard hurried footsteps in the hallway, the deep voice of Travis, my son-in-law, cursing under his breath. Then, the sound of the door opening forcefully. And then, a voice I had not heard for 5 years. A voice that went through my chest like a bolt of lightning. Arthur, my brother. I could not believe it. I stood up slowly, holding onto the wall because my knees were shaking. My heart started beating so fast I felt like I was running out of air. Arthur was here. At my door. After so much time without hearing from him, without a call, without a visit, he lived in another state, worked so much that we lost touch. But now he was here, and I did not know if that was a blessing or a sentence. I approached the door of the storage room carefully, trying not to make noise. From there, I could hear everything. Travis's voice sounded authoritarian, almost mocking. "What do you want?" Travis said, with that tone he uses when he wants to show he is the boss. "I am looking for Margaret Sullivan. I am her brother," Arthur replied. His voice was firm, but polite. He still did not know who he was talking to. There was a silence. I felt the air thicken. Travis let out a short, dry laugh, a laugh that gave me chills. "Oh, her brother? What a coincidence. Look, the lady does not live here anymore. This house belongs to my wife, Jessica. Margaret has no business on this property anymore." I covered my mouth with my hand to not let out a whimper. I knew Travis was cruel, but hearing him say those words out loud, with such coldness, in front of my own brother, broke something inside me. "What do you mean she does not live here anymore?" Arthur's voice changed. It was no longer polite. It was dangerous. "This is the address I have for my sister." "Where is she?" "I already told you. She does not live here. And if she tries to come near, if she tries to cause trouble, she is going to get another beating. Like the last time. Another beating." Those words hung suspended in the air. I felt my legs go weak. I let myself fall against the wall, with my hand still on my mouth, trying to control the crying that wanted to come out. Travis had just confessed everything, in front of Arthur. In front of a man who did not know who he really was. "Another beating?" Arthur repeated, and his voice was pure ice. "You just said my sister received a beating. Your sister was being difficult. She did not understand her place. Jessica and I had to put order in this house. Now she knows how things are. And if you are here to defend her, I suggest you leave. We do not want any more problems here." I could not take it anymore. I opened the door of the storage room and stepped out into the walkway. My steps were slow, unsure. I felt like I was walking on broken glass. When I reached the entrance, I saw Arthur standing at the door. He was wearing a light button-down shirt, dark slacks, carrying a duffel bag in his hand. His face was tense, his eyes locked on Travis with a contained fury I had never seen in him before. And then he saw me. His expression changed completely. The fury mixed with something worse. Horror. He looked me up and down. I saw what he saw. A 67-year-old woman, thin to the bone, with messy gray hair, wearing old and worn-out clothes. A shadow of the woman he remembered. "Margaret," he whispered. I could not hold his gaze. I lowered my eyes to the floor. The shame burned me inside. I did not want him to see me like this. I did not want him to know what I had become. Travis turned around and saw me standing in the hallway. His face hardened. "What are you doing here? Get back inside. This is none of your business." "He is my brother," I murmured, without raising my voice. "I do not care who he is. This is not your house. Go back to the room." Arthur took a step forward. Travis stepped back instinctively. My brother was taller, more heavy-set, and in that moment he seemed twice as dangerous. "So you are the man who hit my sister," Arthur said, with a calm that was scarier than any scream. "The man who kicked her out of her own house." "I did not kick her out of anywhere. She lives here, in the back room. She has everything she needs. Food, a roof. She cannot complain." "The back room." Arthur looked at me, looking for confirmation. I nodded slightly. He closed his eyes for a second, as if he needed to calm down to not explode. "I need to talk to my sister." "Alone." "That is not going to happen," Travis replied, crossing his arms. "If you want to talk to her, you can do it here, with me present. I am not asking for your permission." The tension was so thick you could almost touch it. Travis clenched his jaw. I knew he was considering what to do, whether to confront Arthur or back down. Finally, with a grimace of contempt, he stepped aside. "You have 10 minutes. Then I want you to leave, and take her if you want. We do not need her here anymore." Arthur entered without saying another word. He walked straight toward me, put the bag on the floor, and held me by the shoulders delicately. He looked at me fixedly, searching for my eyes. "Maggie, what happened? What did they do to you?" I could not answer. The words were stuck in my throat. He hugged me. It was a strong, protective hug, and in that moment I broke. I started crying in silence, clinging to him as if he were the only solid thing in a world that had collapsed. "Come," he told me softly. "Show me where you live." I took him to the storage room. When he opened the door and saw the mattress on the floor, the small window, the damp walls, the total absence of furniture, his face transformed. He entered slowly, looking at every corner as if he could not believe what he was seeing. "You sleep here." It was not a question. It was a painful confirmation. "Yes." "How long have you been living like this?" 8 months. He ran his hand over his face, breathing deeply. Then he turned around and looked at me with a mixture of rage and sadness that broke my soul. "This is your house, Maggie. The house you built with William. How did you end up living in a storage shed?" I started telling him. With a low, broken voice, while he sat next to me on that old mattress that smelled of mildew, I told him how it all started, how I arrived at this dark place where I no longer recognize my own life. "It was a 1.5 years ago," I said, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. "Jessica came to visit me. I had not seen her for months. She arrived with Travis, the two of them very serious, very formal. They told me they had financial problems, that they had lost their apartment because Travis lost his job. They needed a temporary place, just for a few months, until they got back on their feet." Arthur listened in silence, with his fists clenched on his knees. I did not doubt it for a second. She is my daughter. How was I going to say no to her? This house is big. It has 3 bedrooms. William and I built it thinking of having space for the family. When he died 7 years ago, I was left alone here. Too much space for just one person. So I told Jessica to come, to stay as long as they needed. "And what happened?" Arthur asked, although I think he already guessed the answer. At first everything seemed normal. They settled in the guest room. I was still in my room, the one I shared with William for 30 years. We cooked together sometimes. Travis looked for work. It seemed like everything was going to be okay. But after 2 months, things started to change. I got up from the mattress and walked toward the window. From there I could see the backyard, the garden that I used to tend with so much love and that was now full of old boxes and accumulated trash. Travis started complaining about everything. He said the house was very messy, that I kept too many useless things. One day I arrived from getting groceries and found that he had thrown away half of my books. The books William gave me over the years. He said they took up too much space and that no one read those old things anymore. Arthur stood up abruptly. "And what did Jessica say?" "Nothing. She just watched." Then she took me aside and told me not to make a scene, that Travis was stressed about the job situation, that I had to be more understanding. Unbelievable. Arthur got up and walked toward the door of the room. He stood there, turning his back to me, and I could see his shoulders rising and falling with every deep breath. He was trying to control himself, to not explode. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked finally, without turning to see me. "Why didn't you tell me any of this?" The guilt went through me like a knife. It was the question I had asked myself 1,000 times in those dark nights, lying on that cold mattress, looking at the cracked ceiling. Because I was ashamed, I admitted. Because I thought it was my fault. Jessica repeated it to me so much that I ended up believing it. She told me I was difficult, that I was stubborn, that I did not know how to adapt, that any normal mother would be happy to have her daughter close. And I started thinking that maybe she was right, that I was the problem. "You were never the problem," Arthur said, turning to look at me. His eyes were red. "The problem is that they took everything from you. Your house, your dignity, your security, and they made you believe it was you who was failing. Besides," I continued, with my voice breaking, "I was afraid that if I told you, if I told anyone, Jessica would leave my life forever. She is my only daughter. Arthur, the only thing I have left of William. I thought if I was patient, if I held on a little longer, things would get better, that she would return to being the girl I raised, the one who hugged me and told me she loved me. That girl does not exist anymore, Maggie. If she ever existed." His words hurt me because I knew they were true. The Jessica, I remembered, the one who played in this same yard, the one who cried in my arms when she had nightmares, had disappeared a long time ago. Or maybe I never really knew her. "Do you know what is the most painful part of all this?" I said, wiping my tears. "That every night, before falling asleep, I pray that tomorrow will be different. I pray that Jessica walks through that door and tells me she is sorry, that she hugs me like before, but it never happens. And I am still here, waiting for a miracle that I know is not coming." Arthur walked back toward me and sat again on the mattress. He took my hands and looked me straight in the eyes. "This ends today. Do you hear me? Today. You cannot do anything," I said, shaking my head. "This is their house now. They have control of everything. Their house? Maggie, where are the papers for this property? Who is listed as the owner?" I stayed silent. I had not thought about that in a long time. "The papers are in the study," I said finally. "In the filing cabinet where William kept all the important documents. The deed is in my name. William left it to me when he died. Everything is in my name." Arthur nodded slowly, and I saw an iron determination settle on his face. "Then legally this house is yours. They have no right. They are guests and can be evicted. But Jessica is my daughter." "Jessica is an abuser," he interrupted me, with firmness but without cruelty. "And Travis is a criminal who physically assaulted you. This is not a complicated family situation. Maggie, this is violence. This is dispossession. And it has to end." I wanted to protest. I wanted to defend her one more time, but the words did not come out. Because deep down, I knew Arthur was right. I had crossed the line between maternal love and self-destruction a long time ago. "What do you want me to do?" I asked finally, feeling more tired than ever. "For now, nothing. Leave it to me. I am going to talk to them. I am going to see those papers, and I am going to find a way to get you out of here. I have nowhere to go. You are coming with me, to my place, until this is resolved." The idea of leaving this house, of escaping these walls that had become a prison, filled me with a painful hope. But also with fear. Travis is not going to let me go just like that. And Jessica, "I'm not asking for their permission," Arthur said, standing up. "I am going out there and I am going to talk to them. You stay here. Do not come out until I return. Arthur, be careful. Travis can get violent." My brother looked at me with an expression I had never seen on him. There was something dark in his eyes, something scary. Let him try. He left the room and closed the door behind him. I stayed there sitting, trembling, listening to his steps move away down the hallway. Then I heard voices. First Arthur's, firm and controlled. Then Travis's, rising, defiant. And finally, Jessica's voice. My daughter had arrived. I could not hear well what they were saying, but the tone was unmistakable. Travis was furious. Arthur did not flinch. And Jessica sounded cold, calculating. That voice she used when she wanted to manipulate a situation in her favor. I stood up and approached the door, pressing my ear to the wood. Now I could hear better. "This is not his house," Travis was saying. "You have no right to come here and give orders." "You are right," Arthur replied. "It is not my house. It is my sister's house. And you are occupying it illegally." "Illegally." Jessica's voice sounded offended. "We are her family. She invited us to live here. The invitation was temporary. It has been over a year. And you have her living in a storage shed. Does that seem normal to you?" "She is fine there," Jessica said. "She has everything she needs. She does not complain." "Of course she does not complain. Because your husband hit her and has her terrified." There was a heavy silence. Then, Jessica's voice, still cold but now with a touch of fake concern. "My mother is very dramatic. She always exaggerates things. If Travis pushed her, it was because she provoked him. She was making noise when he needed to rest. It was an accident. An accident that split her head open," Arthur said, and I could hear the contempt in his voice. "An accident for which she did not go to the hospital because you did not let her." "We took care of her," Jessica insisted. "I cleaned her wound myself. She did not need to go to the hospital." "Do you know how many years of prison they can give your husband for assaulting a senior citizen?" Arthur asked. "Between 3 and 5 years, and that is without counting the dispossession, the extortion, and the psychological abuse." "You cannot prove anything," Travis said, but his voice no longer sounded so sure. "No? I have my sister with a scar on her head. I have neighbors who heard the screams. I have evidence that you have her living in subhuman conditions, and I have the papers of this house that prove you have no legal right over it." "This house is mine," Jessica said, and now her voice was trembling. "My mother promised it to me. She told me that when she died it would be mine." "But your mother is not dead, Jessica. She is alive. And while she is alive, this house is hers, not yours. She is already very old. She cannot take care of a property like this anymore. We do it for her. Take care. You call taking her room, selling her furniture, controlling every move she makes, and hitting her when she does not obey. Taking care?" "I never hit her," Jessica defended herself. "It was Travis, and I already told you it was an accident. You were there. You saw what happened and did nothing. That makes you an accomplice. Legally and morally." There was another silence. I could imagine the scene. Arthur standing in front of them, imposing, without backing down an inch. Travis and Jessica starting to realize they had messed up, that their little kingdom of terror was about to collapse. "What do you want?" Travis asked finally. "Money? Is that it? Did you come to get money out of your sister?" "I came because I knew nothing about her for 5 years and wanted to visit her. What I found was a situation of abuse that I am not going to tolerate. I do not want your money. What I want is for my sister to get her house and her dignity back." "She can stay here," Jessica said. "We are going to improve her room. We are going to buy her new furniture. Whatever is necessary. Too late for that." "What does that mean?" Travis asked, and now he sounded nervous. "It means I am going to do the following. First, I am taking my sister with me today. Second, I am going to hire a lawyer. Third, we are going to start a legal process to evict you from this property. And fourth, I am going to file criminal charges against you, Travis, for assaulting a senior citizen." "You cannot do that," Jessica said, but her voice no longer had conviction. "I can, and I am going to. Unless what? Unless you get out of this house voluntarily. Today. Now." There was an explosion of voices. Travis was shouting that they were not going anywhere. Jessica insisted that the house was practically hers, that they had invested money in improvements, that they had rights. Arthur kept his voice firm, without getting upset, repeating over and over that they had no legal right to the property. I was still glued to the door, with my heart beating so hard I thought my chest was going to burst. A part of me wanted to go out, stop all this, tell Arthur it was not worth it, to leave things as they were. But another part, a part that had been asleep for months, was starting to wake up. A part that was tired of being afraid, tired of living like a shadow in her own house. "You have 1 hour," Arthur said finally. "Pack the essentials and leave. If in an hour you are still here, I am calling the police." "With what authority?" Travis shouted. "You are not the owner of this house. You cannot kick us out." "I have a power of attorney signed by my sister 3 years ago," Arthur lied, and I was surprised by the ease with which he did it. "She gave me legal authority over her assets in case of emergency, and this is an emergency. So yes, I can kick you out, and I am going to do it." He did not have any power of attorney, but they did not know that. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something like hope. "This is not going to stay like this," Jessica threatened. "I am going to sue. I am going to prove that my mother is not in her right mind, that she needs someone to take care of her." "Try it," Arthur replied. "But I am warning you that process can take months, and in the meantime, you are going to have to get out of here, because if you do not do it voluntarily, I am going to remove you myself, and, believe me, you do not want that to happen." There was a tense silence, then quick steps approaching down the hallway. I stepped away from the door just in time. Jessica opened it abruptly. Her face was red with fury. She looked at me with a hatred so pure I felt it burn me. "This is what you wanted," she screamed at me. "To call your brother to kick us out? After everything we did for you." I could not answer. The words were stuck in my throat. She took a step toward me, and I stepped back instinctively, hitting my back against the wall. "Everything I did was for your own good," she continued, with her voice trembling with rage. "I gave you a roof, food, company. And this is how you pay me? Bringing this jerk to humiliate us." "Jessica, enough." Arthur appeared behind her. "Get out of this room. Now, shut up. Don't give me orders," she screamed at him, turning to face him. "This is still my house, and she is still my mother. I can talk to her whenever I want." "Not anymore," Arthur said, stepping between us. "It is over. You are never coming near her again. You are never screaming at her again. You are never treating her like trash again." "Trash? I took care of her when no one else did, when you disappeared for 5 years without even calling. Where were you when she cried alone every night after Dad died?" Those words hit me hard, because they had some truth. Arthur had been absent, busy with his job, with his life, in another state, and I had been left alone. But that did not justify what Jessica had done to me. "You are right," Arthur admitted, and his voice softened a little. "I was not here when I should have been, and I am sorry, but that does not give you the right to abuse your mother, to steal her house, to allow your husband to hit her. I did not steal anything from her. She gave me everything voluntarily. Why did you manipulate her? Why did you make her feel guilty? Because you knew she would do anything for you." Jessica opened her mouth to answer, but the words did not come out. I saw her eyes fill with tears. For a moment, just for a moment, I saw my daughter, the girl she used to be, but the vision vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Let's go," Travis said finally, turning around. "I am not staying here to listen to this." He left the room, taking big strides. I heard him start to open and close drawers violently in the master bedroom. Travis passed through the hallway without looking at me, with the phone glued to his ear, talking to someone about finding a lawyer. Arthur stayed with me in the room. He sat on the mattress and let out a long sigh. "Are you okay?" he asked me. I nodded, although I was not sure it was true. I felt like I was floating, as if all this was happening to another person and I was just watching it from afar. "Do you really have a power of attorney?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, but they don't know that. And by the time they discover I lied, it will be too late. I am going to make you sign a real one tomorrow, and we are going to start all the necessary legal processes." "Arthur, what if Jessica is right? What if this is my fault? What if I was the one who provoked all this?" He took my hands and looked at me fixedly. "Listen to me well, Maggie. None of this is your fault. Being kind is not a defect. Being generous is not a weakness. Loving your daughter does not make you guilty of what she did to you. She chose this. She and Travis chose to take advantage of you. You just tried to be a good mother." The tears started falling again. But this time they were different. They were not tears of desperation or fear. They were tears of relief, of feeling, for the first time in months, that someone understood me, that someone believed me. Half an hour passed. We could hear Jessica and Travis moving things in the master bedroom, dragging furniture, arguing in low voices. At one point, Jessica yelled something about taking the television from the living room because they had bought it. Arthur went out of the room to tell her that they were not taking anything they had not brought when they arrived. "You sold everything that belonged to my mother," he told her. "You are not taking the little that is left." There were more screams, more threats. But finally, after almost an hour, I heard the front door open and close several times. They were taking their things out. They were really leaving. Arthur returned to the room. "They are almost done. Do you want to go out and see?" I shook my head. I did not want to see Jessica. I did not want to risk her convincing me to forgive them. Because I knew if she looked me in the eyes, if she said the right words, I would cave. As I always caved. "It is okay," he said. "Stay here. I will handle it." He left again. I stayed sitting on the mattress, hugging my knees, trying to process everything that was happening. In a matter of an hour, my life had taken a complete turn. The hell I lived in just 2 hours ago was about to end. But I did not feel joy. I only felt a huge emptiness. Because as much as she had done to me, Jessica was still my daughter. And losing her, even if it was a version of her I no longer recognized, hurt me more than I could express. I heard steps approaching again. I thought it was Arthur. But when the door opened, it was Jessica. She was alone. Her face no longer showed fury. It showed something worse. It showed absolute coldness. "I hope you are happy," she told me, with a flat voice. "You just lost your only daughter. You just destroyed your only family." "Jessica, I didn't want to." "Yes, you did. You wanted Arthur to come and kick us out. You wanted to keep everything. You were always selfish. You always thought only about yourself." Her words were like knives. But this time, something in me rebelled. Something that had been asleep woke up. "I gave you everything," I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. "I gave you this house. I gave you my time. I gave you my love. And you took everything from me. My room, my furniture, my memories. You hit me. You humiliated me. You made me feel like I was worth nothing. And now you tell me I am the selfish one." Jessica blinked, surprised. I think she had never heard me talk to her like that. "I did what I had to do," she said. But her voice no longer sounded so sure. "I had to survive. Travis and I had nothing. And now I have nothing. It is just that." She did not answer. She just looked at me for a long moment. And in her eyes, I saw something that froze my blood. I saw indifference, as if she were looking at a stranger, as if I were not her mother, as if I never had been. "Goodbye, Mom," she said finally. And she left the room. I heard her steps moving away down the hallway. Then, the front door opened and closed with a dry thud that resonated throughout the house. And then, silence. A silence so deep it scared me. I stayed there sitting, motionless, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to feel. A part of me wanted to run after her, beg her to come back, tell her I was sorry. But another part, the part that had woken up, knew I could not do that. That if I did, everything would start again. The cycle would never break. Arthur entered the room a few minutes later. He looked exhausted. He sat next to me without saying anything. We stayed like that for a long while, in silence, listening to the echo of that house that suddenly seemed too big and too empty. "They left," he said finally. "Travis took 2 suitcases. Jessica took 3. They left the keys on the entryway table." I nodded, unable to speak. I had a lump in my throat so big I felt like I was choking. "Do you want to see the house?" Arthur asked softly. "See what they left? What they took?" "No," I whispered. "Not yet. I can't. That is okay. There is no rush." We stayed sitting on that old mattress, in that tiny, damp room, while the sun started to set outside. The light coming through the small window turned golden, then orange, then purple. And I thought about everything I had lost. Not just the furniture or the objects, but the memories, the dreams, the illusion that my family would one day be complete again. "Tell me about William," Arthur said suddenly. "Tell me how he was at the end, before he died." The question took me by surprise, but it also gave me something to focus on, something that was not the pain of the present. "William was good," I said, and a sad smile appeared on my face. Even when he was sick, when the cancer was consuming him, he remained good. He worried about me. He told me not to cry, that he had had a full life, that the only thing he regretted was leaving me alone. How long was he sick? 2 years. 2 years of treatments, of hospitals, of hopes fading away. Jessica came to visit him at first, but then, when he got really bad, she stopped coming. She said she could not stand seeing him like that it hurt her too much. And Travis never came. Not even to the funeral. He said he did not feel comfortable in those situations. Arthur clenched his fists, but he said nothing. William's last night, I continued, feeling the tears starting to fall again. He took my hand. We were here, in this house. He did not want to die in the hospital. He wanted to be in his bed, in his home. He looked at me and said, "Maggie, promise me you are going to be happy, that you are not going to let anyone take this house from you. This house is ours. It is yours. It is the only legacy we have. Protect it." My voice broke. Arthur put his arm around my shoulders, and I promised him I would. I promised him I would take care of the house, that I would honor his memory, that I would keep alive everything we built together. And what did I do? I let Jessica and Travis destroy everything. They sold the furniture William made with his hands. They threw away the photos of our vacations. They erased his presence from every corner of this house. I broke my promise. "You did not break it," Arthur said firmly. "They manipulated you. They made you believe you had no choice. But now you are going to recover what is yours, and you are going to honor that promise. It is just going to take time." I breathed deeply, trying to calm down. Arthur was right. I could still keep my promise to William. Only the path was going to be harder than I imagined. "What do I do now?" I asked. "How do I start rebuilding all this?" "One step at a time. First, you get out of this room. Second, you get your room back. Third, we start restoring the house little by little. And fourth, we ensure legally that Jessica and Travis cannot come back." It sounded simple when he said it like that, but I knew it would not be. I knew every step was going to hurt, that every corner of this house was going to remind me of what I lost. "I am afraid," I admitted. "Afraid of staying alone here. Afraid that Jessica will come back. Afraid of not being able to do it. You are not going to be alone. I am staying with you as long as necessary. And we are going to put new locks in tomorrow. Jessica is not going to be able to enter even if she wants to." The idea comforted me a little. But there was something else that worried me. Something I had been keeping to myself for months. "Arthur, do you think I am a bad mother?" He looked at me surprised. "Why do you ask that?" "Because Jessica says I am. She says I never knew how to give her what she needed, that I was always cold with her. That is why she distanced herself. Maggie, look at me." I looked at him. His brown eyes, so similar to our mother's, were full of compassion. "Jessica is lying. I remember how you were with her when she was a child. You stayed up when she was sick. You prepared her favorite food. You went to all her school plays. You took her to the park every Sunday. You were a loving mother, a dedicated mother. What happened later, the person she became, is not your fault. But I did something wrong. Children don't become like that out of nowhere." "Sometimes they do," Arthur said. "Sometimes people choose a path, and there is nothing you can do to stop them. You gave her love, structure, values. She chose to ignore all that. She chose ambition over love, money over family. That was her decision, not yours." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe it was not my fault. But maternal guilt is something difficult to let go. It sticks to you like a second skin. It whispers to you that if you had done something different, if you had been better, stronger, wiser, things would have been different. "There is something else I didn't tell you," I said, lowering my voice. "Something that happened 3 months ago. Something that has been eating me up inside." Arthur tensed. "What happened?" It was a Sunday. Jessica and Travis had gone out. I was in the kitchen, taking advantage of being alone to cook something I liked. I was making the pot roast William loved. The one I made with potatoes and carrots, with that touch of herbs he said was a secret. I paused, remembering that day with painful clarity. While I was cooking, I remembered I kept a box in the closet of the master bedroom. The room that used to be mine. A box with letters William wrote to me during the years we were together. Letters from when we were young, when he traveled for work, and wrote to me every day. I kept those letters like a treasure. They were the most valuable thing I had. And what happened to them? I decided to go look for them. I thought Jessica and Travis wouldn't be back until night. I entered the master bedroom carefully. Everything was so different. They had changed the curtains, put on new sheets, hung paintings I had never seen. It no longer felt like my room. It felt like a stranger's room. I wiped the tears that started to fall. I looked in the closet. The box wasn't there. I looked in all the drawers, under the bed, in the walk-in closet. Nothing. And then I saw it. In the bathroom trash can, pieces of paper, remains of envelopes. I got closer and recognized William's handwriting. They had torn up the letters. All of them. Every single one. And they had thrown them away as if they were trash. My God, Maggie. I knelt there, on the bathroom floor, trying to put the pieces together. But they were too torn, too small. There was no way to reconstruct them. I cried so much I thought I was going to drown. And then I heard the front door. They had returned. They found you there. Yes. Jessica entered the bathroom and saw me kneeling, with the pieces of paper in my hands. Do you know what she told me? She told me it was time I got over the past, that William had died years ago, that clinging to those letters wasn't healthy, that she was only trying to help me move on. Arthur got up from the mattress. He was shaking with rage. She destroyed Dad's letters, on purpose. It wasn't just the letters, I continued, feeling my voice break. It wasn't just the letters, I continued, feeling the need to tell everything, to get out the poison I had been keeping for months. I became more careful. I started hiding the few things I had left. A small photo of William I managed to rescue, my wedding ring, a necklace my mother gave me before dying. I kept them in a cloth bag, under the mattress. You still have them. Yes, they are the only thing Jessica couldn't take from me, because she stopped entering this room. I think she was disgusted by it, or maybe she just didn't care anymore what I did in here. Arthur came closer and put his hand on my shoulder. Show them to me. I knelt next to the mattress and reached under, looking for the bag. When I pulled it out, it was dusty and wrinkled. I opened it with trembling hands and took out the objects one by one. The small photo of William smiling, taken on our last trip together to the beach. My wedding ring. A simple gold band he had bought with his savings from 6 months of work. The faux pearl necklace my mother wore on my wedding day and gave me before dying, telling me to take care of it like she had taken care of me. Arthur took the photo carefully, as if it were something sacred. He looked at William for a long moment. I miss him, he said simply. Me too, every day. He remained silent, holding the photo. Then he put it back in the bag, along with the other things. We are getting out of this room, he said suddenly. Now, you cannot spend one more night here. But, no buts. Jessica and Travis are gone. This house is yours again, and you are going to sleep in your room. In your bed. Even if we have to buy a new mattress tonight. I felt a knot of anxiety in my chest. The idea of leaving this room, of walking through that house that had been my prison, terrified me. What was I going to find? What else had they destroyed? How many more memories had they erased? I'm scared, I admitted. I know. But we are going to do it together. I'm going with you. Step by step. He held out his hand. I looked at it for a long moment, feeling my heart beating strongly. And finally, I took it. We left the room together. The hallway was dark. Arthur looked for the switch and turned on the light. The hallway lit up with a cold, white light that made me squint. I hadn't walked through here with the light on for months. I always moved in the shadows, trying not to be seen. We moved slowly. Every step cost me an enormous effort. We passed the small half-bath where they allowed me to shower, then the closed door of what used to be my room. Arthur stopped there. Do you want to go in? I shook my head. Not yet. First, I wanted to see the rest of the house. I wanted to know what was left of my home. We reached the living room. Arthur turned on the light, and I stood paralyzed in the entryway. The living room was almost empty. The 3-piece sectional, where William and I sat to watch movies on Friday nights, had disappeared. In its place was a small gray fabric sofa I had never seen. The coffee table William made from oak wood was no longer there. Now there was a cheap glass table with chipped corners. The curtains I had sewn myself 15 years ago had been replaced by white plastic blinds. "They took everything," I whispered. "Or they sold it," added Arthur, walking through the living room. "Look at the walls." The walls were full of holes where paintings used to hang. Paintings William and I had collected for years. Landscapes, portraits, photographs of our family. Everything had disappeared. The walls were now bare, with only lighter rectangular marks where the paintings had protected the paint from the sun. I walked toward the mantelpiece over the fireplace. There I used to have photos of Jessica. Photos from when she was a baby, when she made her first communion, when she graduated from school. All had disappeared. In their place was only an artificial plant covered in dust and a decorative candle that had never been lit. "They erased my history," I said, feeling the tears falling again. "They erased everything William and I built, as if we had never existed." Arthur hugged me. He let me cry on his shoulder until I had no more tears left. And when I finally let go, he looked at me with determination. "We are going to get it all back. Maybe not the exact objects, but we are going to fill this house again, with things that make you happy, with new memories. I promise you." I nodded, although I wasn't sure I believed him. How could I recover 30 years of memories? How could I replace William's letters, my family photos, the furniture he made with his hands? We went to the kitchen. There, the situation was a little better. The basic appliances were still there. The stove, the refrigerator, the small table where I ate my meager meals. But I opened the cabinets and saw they were almost empty. They had taken most of the plates, the good pots, the utensils. They left only the basics, the minimum to survive. "When was the last time you ate well?" Arthur asked, looking inside the almost empty refrigerator. "I don't remember. There were some leftovers in plastic containers, stale bread, 2 eggs, a little milk that was probably about to expire." Arthur closed the refrigerator forcefully. "Tomorrow we are going to the grocery store. We are going to fill this kitchen, and you are going to eat properly." "Arthur, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. You are my sister, and I am not going to allow you to keep living like this for one more day." We left the kitchen and finally stopped in front of the master bedroom door. My old room, the room I shared with William for 30 years, the room where my best memories were born, and also where I lived my worst nightmares after his death. Arthur put his hand on the knob. "Ready?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. He opened the door. The room was in semi-darkness. Arthur looked for the switch and turned on the light. I stayed in the doorway, not daring to take another step. The room I used to know like the back of my hand was now strange territory. The king-sized bed William and I bought on our 10th anniversary was no longer there. In its place was a smaller bed with sheets I had never seen, wine-colored, with a modern print that didn't go with anything. The closet where I kept my clothes was open. I could see there were some garments still hanging. Jessica's clothes. She had taken what she wanted and left the rest. The walls, which used to be a soft cream color William painted personally, were now painted dark gray. A gray that made the room feel smaller, colder, more hostile. In the corners were stacked boxes. Boxes full of things Jessica and Travis hadn't taken, but hadn't fully unpacked either. Arthur went in and started opening the boxes. I stayed at the door, watching. In one of the boxes he found Travis's clothes, wrinkled shirts, old pants. In another, shoes and bathroom items, brand-name products that probably cost more than I spent on food in a month. "I'm going to take all this out," Arthur said. "Tomorrow I'll tell them to come pick it up. If they don't do it in a week, I'm throwing it out. And if Jessica gets mad, let her get mad. She doesn't live here anymore. She has no right to keep her things in your house." He kept checking. In the closet he found more clothes, shoeboxes, shopping bags that had never been opened. Jessica had always been a consumerist. She always needed to have the latest, the newest thing, even if it meant getting into debt, or in this case, stealing from her own mother. Then Arthur stopped. He was looking inside the last drawer of the dresser. His expression changed. He tensed up. "Maggie, come here." I approached carefully. I looked inside the drawer, and I felt the floor open under my feet. There, At the bottom of the drawer, under some handkerchiefs I recognized as mine, was a large envelope. Arthur took it out carefully and opened it. Inside were documents. Many documents. He spread them out on the bed so we could see them. They were legal papers, forms, and on all of them appeared my name and Jessica's signature. "What is this?" I asked, feeling my heart start to beat faster. Arthur read the documents in silence, his face getting more serious by the second. When he finished, he looked at me with a mix of disbelief and fury. "Jessica was preparing a declaration of incapacity," he said, with a trembling voice. "She was going to have you declared mentally incompetent. There are fake medical forms here, witness statements that were never made, documents that say you suffer from senile dementia and that you cannot take care of yourself." I sat on the bed because my legs failed me. I couldn't process what I was hearing. "Incapacity," I repeated. "If she had completed this process, she would have stripped you of all your legal rights. She would have been your legal guardian. She would have had total control over your money, your properties, your medical decisions, everything. But I don't have dementia. I am perfectly fine. I know. And any real doctor would confirm it. But look at this." He took one of the papers. "Here it says a certain doctor, Stephen Miller, certified that you were evaluated and showed clear signs of cognitive deterioration. Do you know a Dr. Miller?" I shook my head. I had never heard that name. "It's fake. All this is fake. Jessica was fabricating evidence to declare you incompetent. She probably paid someone to forge these documents, or she invented them herself." I took the papers with trembling hands. I read them with disbelief. There, in cold and impersonal legal language, a woman I didn't recognize was described. A woman who supposedly couldn't remember dates, who was constantly confused, who represented a danger to herself, a woman who needed constant supervision. "She was going to lock me up," I whispered. "She was going to declare me crazy and lock me up. Not in a literal sense, but legally, yes. She would have taken away all decision-making power, and then she could have done whatever she wanted with this house. Sell it, mortgage it, keep it, whatever." I felt the room spinning. My own daughter, the girl I carried in my arms, nursed, cared for through every illness, every nightmare, every difficult moment of her life. That girl had been planning to destroy me completely. Why didn't she do it? I asked. If she already had all these papers, why didn't she go through with it? Arthur checked the documents again. It seems she was still missing some things. Look at the date on these papers. The most recent one is from 2 weeks ago. She was probably waiting to gather more evidence. Or maybe she was waiting for you to deteriorate more. For the isolation, the mistreatment, the malnutrition to really affect your mind. She was preparing me, I said, feeling the horrible truth reveal itself. She had me in that room, malnourished, isolated, beaten, not to punish me, but to break me, so that when she presented these papers, I really looked incapable. Exactly. It is a long-term plan, cruel and calculated. I got up from the bed and walked toward the window. Outside, the night was completely dark. I could see my reflection in the glass. An old woman, thin, with messy hair and wrinkled clothes. A woman who really looked lost, broken. She almost succeeded, I said. Look at what I became. If you hadn't arrived today, in a few more months I probably would have been so bad that her fake documents would have seemed true. Arthur approached and put his hands on my shoulders, forcing me to turn and look at him. But I arrived, and this is not going to happen. We are going to use these documents against her. This is fraud. This is forgery. This is enough for her to face criminal charges. She is my daughter. She is a criminal, he interrupted me, harshly. Maggie, you have to understand the gravity of what she was doing. She wasn't just stealing your house. She was stealing your freedom, your identity, your right to exist as an autonomous person. This goes beyond family abuse. This is monstrous. I wanted to defend her. I wanted to find some excuse, some justification, but there was none. There was no way to explain those documents. There was no way to justify that level of betrayal. What do we do now? I asked, feeling all energy leave me. Now we keep these documents in a safe place. Tomorrow we go to a lawyer, a real lawyer. We show him everything. These fake papers, the evidence of physical abuse, the testimonies we can get from the neighbors, and we build a solid case. The neighbors, I repeated, remembering something. Brenda. Mrs. Brenda Higgins. She lives in the house next door. She saw everything. She heard the screams. She helped me once when Travis hit me. She helped you? How? That day I hit my head against the cabinet. Afterward, when Jessica took me to the room and cleaned the wound, I was still bleeding a lot. Jessica got scared. I think she thought I might bleed out. She left me alone a moment to go look for more bandages. I stumbled out of the room. The patio door was open. I managed to get to Brenda's garden. And what happened? She saw me. She was watering her plants. When she saw me with my bloody head, she made me go into her house. She cleaned the wound well. She gave me water, food. She asked me what had happened. At first I didn't want to tell her anything. But she insisted. I told her everything. Crying, I told her everything. And what did she do? She wanted to call the police, but I begged her not to. I told her Jessica was my daughter, that I couldn't report her, that I just needed time for things to get better. Brenda didn't agree, but she respected my decision. She told me if I ever needed help, to knock on her door, that she would be there. Then Brenda can testify. She can confirm the injuries. She can declare about what you told her. It is direct testimony. But it is going to look bad. It is going to look like I knew I was being abused and did nothing. Because that's how it was, Arthur said, softly but firmly. You knew you were being abused, but you did nothing because you were afraid, because they had manipulated you to believe you had no options. That doesn't make you guilty. That makes you a victim. The word victim fell on me like cold water. I had never seen myself like that. I always thought a victim was someone weak, someone passive, someone who let themselves be hurt for no reason. But now I understood that being a victim was not a choice. It was a circumstance, and I had been in that circumstance for over a year. Tomorrow we are going to talk to Brenda, Arthur said, putting the documents back in the envelope. And then to the lawyer. But for now, you need to rest. You need to eat something and sleep in a real bed. I looked at the bed Jessica and Travis had used. The idea of sleeping there turned my stomach. I can't sleep here. Not in that bed. I understand. How about the other room? The one that was the guest room before they occupied it. I can try. We left the master bedroom and walked down the hallway to the other room. Arthur opened the door. This room was better. They hadn't changed it as much. The twin bed that had always been there was still in its place. The curtains were the same. Even the small painting of a landscape hanging on the wall was still there. This works, I said, feeling a small relief. Arthur checked the closet. There were some clean sheets stored. He took them out, and between the two of us, we made the bed. It was a simple, almost mundane act, but there was something deeply significant in it. I was recovering my house, step by step, room by room. When we finished, Arthur looked at me. You're hungry. I nodded. I had eaten almost nothing all day. My stomach protested. I'm going to order food. What would you like? Anything is fine. No. Tell me what you really want. I thought for a moment. It had been so long since I chose my own food. Pizza, I said finally. Pepperoni with extra cheese. Like the ones William and I used to order on Fridays. Arthur smiled. It was the first real smile I saw on his face since he arrived. Pizza with extra cheese. Done. Arthur left the room to place the order. I stayed there standing, looking at the freshly made bed. A simple bed with clean sheets that smelled of detergent. It wasn't a big deal, but for me, in that moment, it was like recovering a piece of my dignity. I sat on the edge of the bed. It was firm, comfortable. Nothing like that old mattress on the floor of the storage room. I ran my hand over the sheets, feeling the soft texture under my fingers, and for the first time in months, I felt something like hope. Arthur returned after a few minutes. The pizza arrives in half an hour. Meanwhile, why don't you take a shower? Use the master bathroom. It is yours. It always has been. The idea of using the master bathroom, of showering without rushing, without fear of Travis banging on the door, screaming at me to hurry up, filled me with a strange emotion. Something between relief and sadness. And you? I'm going to start taking the boxes out of the master bedroom, gathering the things Jessica and Travis left. The faster we clean their presence from this house, the better. I nodded and walked toward the master bathroom. When I opened the door, I found another transformed space. The white tiles William and I had chosen so carefully were still there, but everything else had changed. There were expensive beauty products scattered on the vanity. Creams, perfumes, brand-name makeup, things Jessica had left behind in her rush to leave. I locked the door. A simple act I used to do without thinking, but in the last few months I had lost the right to do. In the back storage room there was no lock. Anyone could enter whenever they wanted. I took off the old clothes I was wearing, the same clothes I had been wearing for 3 days because I didn't have many options. I looked at myself in the mirror for the first time in weeks, and I was scared of what I saw. A gaunt woman stared back at me. My cheekbones stuck out too much. My eyes were sunken, with deep purple circles. My gray hair was dull and lifeless. My skin looked grayish, without shine. I had lost so much weight that my collarbones stuck out prominently. I looked sick. I looked broken. This was the woman Jessica wanted to present as mentally incompetent. And looking at myself now, I understood why her plan could have worked. Because I looked exactly like someone who cannot take care of themselves. I got in the shower and turned on the hot water. The steam started to fill the bathroom. I stayed under the stream of water for what seemed like hours, letting the heat penetrate my tense muscles, my tired bones. I washed my hair with the expensive shampoo Jessica had left. I used the scented soap that probably cost more than I spent on food in a week. And while the water fell on me, I cried. I cried for everything I had lost, for the daughter I thought I had and who never really existed, for William, who had died without knowing our daughter was capable of such cruelty, for the years I spent in that little room, convincing myself I deserved that treatment. When I got out of the shower, I wrapped myself in a clean towel I found in the closet. I dried my hair as best I could. I looked at myself again in the mirror. I still looked gaunt, but at least now I was clean. It was a start. I went back to the guest room. Arthur had left some of my clothes on the bed, clothes he had rescued from somewhere in the house. A simple dress I recognized as mine. It was wrinkled but clean. I put it on and felt a little more like myself. I left the room and found Arthur in the living room. He had gathered all the boxes from the master bedroom and stacked them by the front door. He was sweating from the effort. "Better?" he asked when he saw me. "A little." The doorbell rang. The pizza had arrived. Arthur paid and brought the big box to the living room. He opened it, and the aroma of melted cheese and freshly baked dough filled the space. My stomach growled loudly. We sat on the floor, because the sofa Jessica and Travis had left was too small for both of us. Arthur took out 2 plates from the kitchen and served the slices. I took the food with trembling hands and took the first bite. The taste made me close my eyes. It had been so long since I ate something like this. Something hot, abundant, tasty, something I had chosen. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, feeling my shrunken stomach protesting a little at the abundant food, but at the same time thanking it. "Slowly," Arthur said, noticing my anxiety. "You are not going to run out of food. There is enough for you." I nodded, but kept eating. I finished 2 slices before feeling satisfied. Arthur ate 4. We left the rest in the box for later. "Tomorrow morning, we are going to do several things," Arthur said, wiping his hands with a napkin. "First, we are going to change all the locks on the house. I don't want Jessica or Travis to have a way to get in. Second, we are going to go to the bank. I need to know if they have access to your accounts. Third, we are going to talk to Brenda. And fourth, we go to a lawyer. Sounds like a very long day. It is going to be, but it is necessary. Every hour that passes without securing this house legally is an hour Jessica can try something. Do you think she'll come back?" "I don't know. But I don't want to risk it." We stayed in silence a moment, eating pizza on the floor of that almost empty living room. It was a strange scene, almost absurd, but there was also something comforting in it. I wasn't alone. For the first time in over a year, I wasn't alone. "Arthur," I said finally, "why did you come today? After so many years without visiting me, why exactly today?" He stayed quiet a moment, looking at his plate. "I had a dream," he said finally. "A week ago, I dreamed of William. He was standing in this living room, in this same house, and he was looking at me with sadness. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. And I knew, in the dream I knew, that something was wrong, that you needed help. A dream. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I woke up with terrible anguish. I tried calling you, but your phone was disconnected. I asked my assistant to investigate, to look for information about you. She found nothing alarming, but the anguish wouldn't go away, so I decided to come. I took a few days off work and came to see you. Without warning, just to make sure you were okay. William, I whispered, feeling the tears starting to form again. He always said he would take care of me, even after dying. It seems he kept his promise. We stayed in silence again. A comfortable silence. A silence that didn't need to be filled with words. After eating, Arthur insisted I go to sleep. He said he was going to stay up a while longer, reviewing the documents we had found, preparing for the next day. I was exhausted. The day had been emotionally draining, so I accepted. I went to the guest room and got into bed. The sheets were cool and clean, the pillow was soft. I closed my eyes, hoping sleep would come fast, but it didn't come. I stayed there lying down, looking at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, about Jessica, about Travis, about the fake documents, about the destroyed letters, about the year and a half of hell I had lived. And then, for the first time, I allowed myself to feel rage, not sadness, not guilt, pure rage. Rage toward Jessica for betraying me, rage toward Travis for hitting me, rage toward myself for allowing all this to happen, for being so weak, for believing that maternal love could overcome anything. The rage burned me inside, but it also gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time. It gave me strength. I got up from the bed and walked toward the window. I opened the curtains and looked outside. The street was empty and dark. The neighboring houses had their lights off. Everyone was sleeping. Everyone but me. And in that moment, standing in front of that window, I made a decision. I was no longer going to be the victim. I wasn't going to allow Jessica to get away with it. I wasn't going to let maternal guilt paralyze me. I was going to fight. I was going to recover not only my house, but my entire life. Jessica had made a mistake. She had assumed I was weak, that I was broken, that I wouldn't defend myself. But she didn't know the strength that comes from pain, the determination that is born when you have nothing left to lose. I went back to bed. This time sleep came faster, and I dreamed of William. Just like Arthur, William was standing in our house, in the living room, smiling, and he was telling me something I couldn't hear. But I didn't need to hear it, because I knew what he was saying. He was saying, "Fight. Recover what is yours. I am with you." I woke up early. The sun was barely starting to rise. I could hear Arthur moving in the kitchen. It smelled like fresh coffee. I got up, fixed myself up as best I could with the limited clothes I had, and left the room. Arthur was in the kitchen, making breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee. A simple but abundant meal. "Good morning," he said when he saw me. "Did you sleep well?" Surprisingly, yes. We ate together in the kitchen. And while we ate, Arthur went over the plan for the day. The locksmith would come at 9. The bank opened at 10. Brenda would probably be home all morning. And the lawyer could see us at 2 in the afternoon. "Ready for this?" he asked. I thought about Jessica, about her cold eyes when she said goodbye to me, about the fake documents hidden in her drawer, about William's letters torn to pieces. "More than ready," I replied, and I meant it. The locksmith arrived promptly at 9, a serious-looking older man who changed all the locks on the house in less than 2 hours. He handed me the new keys with a firm handshake. Arthur paid him in cash, $200, and the man left without asking questions. I held the keys in my hand, feeling their weight. They were more than simple pieces of metal. They were my security, my protection. Jessica could no longer enter. At 10, we went to the bank. The branch was 20 minutes away by car. Arthur drove while I looked out the window, watching the streets pass by that I used to travel freely, and that in the last year I had seen only from afar. At the bank, we spoke with an account executive, a young man in a gray suit who attended us with professionalism. I explained that I needed to check my accounts, verify if anyone else had access to them. The executive checked his system and then looked at me with concern. "Mrs. Sullivan, your account has two holders, you and Miss Jessica Sullivan. She was added 8 months ago as a joint holder with full withdrawal rights." I felt my stomach turn. Jessica had full access to my money, to my pension, to the savings William and I had accumulated for years. "How much is in the account?" I asked, fearing the answer. The executive checked again. "Currently there are $1,200, ma'am. $1,200, out of the almost $30,000 that were there when William died. All that remained of our life savings was $1,200. "Can you show me the transactions from the last few months?" Arthur asked, with a tense voice. The executive printed the statement. We reviewed it together. Withdrawal after withdrawal. Transfers, purchases with debit card. Jessica had been emptying the account systematically. $500 here, $800 there. Purchases at clothing stores, expensive restaurants, electronics stores. "I need to remove her as a joint holder," I said, feeling the rage growing again. "Immediately." "Of course, ma'am. I just need you to sign these forms." I signed everything they put in front of me. Arthur supervised every document, reading the fine print, making sure everything was correct. When we finished, the executive assured me that Jessica would no longer have access to my account, that if she tried to make any withdrawal or transfer, it would be declined. "I also recommend you change your online access passwords," the executive added, "for security." I did it right there, with his help. New passwords, new security questions. Arthur took photos of all the documents with his phone. Evidence for the lawyer. We left the bank and went straight to Brenda's house. I knocked on her door with trembling hands. I heard footsteps inside, and the door opened. Brenda Higgins was 72 years old. She was a petite woman with white hair tied in a bun. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Maggie," she whispered, and hugged me tightly. "Thank God. I thought I was never going to see you leave that house." She let us in. Her living room was cozy, full of plants and photographs of her family. She offered us coffee and cookies. Arthur explained the situation, told her about the fake documents, about Jessica's plan to declare me incompetent. Brenda listened to everything, with an increasingly horrified expression. "I knew something bad was happening," she said finally. "I heard the screams, the fights. Once I saw that man, Travis, push you against the car. I wanted to call the police so many times, but you asked me not to." "I know," I said, "and I am sorry. But now I need your help. I need you to state what you saw, what you heard." "Of course, whatever is necessary. I am not going to allow that girl to get away with it." Arthur took notes on everything Brenda remembered. Approximate dates, specific incidents, conversations she had heard through the walls. Everything was recorded. At 2:00 sharp, we were at the lawyer's office. His name was Daniel Peterson, and he had a small but tidy office downtown. He was a man of about 50 with thick glasses and calm manners. We showed him everything. The fake documents, the photos of the little room where they made me live, the bank statements, Brenda's written statement, the photos of the scar on my head. Daniel reviewed every document with meticulous attention. When he finished, he took off his glasses and looked at us seriously. "You have a very solid case," he said. "Fraud, forgery, elder abuse, dispossession, extortion. Jessica and Travis could face several years in prison, and that is without counting the civil lawsuits that can proceed." "What do you recommend?" Arthur asked. "First, we file criminal charges. With all this evidence, it is very likely arrest warrants will be issued. Second, we start the formal eviction process, although technically they already left. Third, we request a restraining order so they cannot approach Mrs. Sullivan or her property." "How long will all this take?" I asked. "The criminal process can take months, but restraining orders can be issued in a matter of days. With the evidence you have, any judge will approve them." I signed the contracts. I gave Daniel a retainer of $500 from the little I had left. He assured me he would do everything possible to recover the money Jessica had stolen, although he warned that she had probably already spent it. We left the office with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Arthur took me back home, my home, which now, finally, began to feel a little bit mine again. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Daniel filed all the complaints. The police summoned Jessica and Travis for questioning. When Jessica tried to justify the fake documents, she contradicted herself multiple times. The Dr. Miller, who supposedly had evaluated me, did not exist. The certificate was fake. The restraining orders were approved. Jessica could not come within 200 yards of me or my house. If she did, she would be arrested immediately. Travis was arrested for assault. He spent a night in jail before his family paid bail, but now he had a criminal record and a pending trial. Arthur stayed with me for 3 weeks. In that time, little by little, we restored the house. We bought new furniture, not identical to what we had before, because those were irreplaceable, but we bought things I liked: a comfortable beige sofa, a light wood dining table, new curtains for the living room. I hired a painter to cover that dark gray in my room. I painted it cream again, like it was before, like William liked it. And little by little, that house felt like a home again. One afternoon, while Arthur and I were organizing new books on a shelf we had just bought, I found something. It was at the back of one of the drawers of the desk in the study, a white envelope with my name written in William's handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was weak, shaky, written when he was already very sick. "My dear Maggie," it said, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. It means you had to move on without me, something I deeply regret. I want you to know that every day I spent by your side was a gift. Every laugh, every tear, every shared moment was perfect. This house is yours. We built it together, but now it is yours alone. Protect it. Protect yourself. Do not let anyone, not even our daughter, take what belongs to you. Be strong, my love. Be brave, and be happy. I will be waiting for you. With all my love, William." Tears fell on the paper as I read it. Arthur hugged me while I cried, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of liberation. Months later, the trial against Travis ended. He was found guilty of elder abuse. 2 years in prison. Jessica was found guilty of fraud and forgery. 1 year in prison, 3 of probation, and ordered to pay back the stolen money through monthly payments. She never contacted me again. She never asked for forgiveness. And I learned to accept that the daughter I loved no longer existed, if she ever really existed. Today I am 68 years old. I live alone in my house, the house William and I built, the house I almost lost, but finally managed to recover. Brenda visits me every afternoon. We drink coffee and talk about our lives. Arthur calls me every Sunday without fail. And although the scars remain, although the destroyed memories will never return, I learned something important. I learned that protecting myself is not selfishness, that setting boundaries is not cruelty, that sometimes love is not enough, and that it is okay to let go, even when it hurts. This house is mine, my life is mine, and no one is ever going to take them from me again.